Good morning. This is Katie Friedman from Unitrends. I'd like to welcome you to our live session, Cloud-Based Recovery Assurance. Is your confidence in your ability to recover critical data and applications shrinking? Before we begin today, I did want to give you a few housekeeping notes. As you may have already noticed, we do have all attendees in listen-only mode. With that in mind, we do welcome your questions throughout today's presentation. However, we do ask that you utilize the Q&A functionality from the WebEx toolkit, which you will find by selecting the icon with a question mark near the upper right-hand corner of your screen if you have that view, or in the drop-down menu near the middle top of your screen if you have that view. Please make sure to address all questions to our panelists so that we can answer your questions as quickly as possible. With those details taken care of, I do want to go ahead and introduce our presenter for today. Today we have Mike Demetlio, who is our Director of Product Marketing. Mike?
Katie, thanks a lot. Really appreciate that introduction. Welcome everybody to today's session. I know everybody's time is valuable, so I truly appreciate you taking some time out today to really think and talk about a super important subject in today's IT world. And, you know, I really know as IT professionals, I think at least, what I'm about to say here is hardly news, but it's really worth stating. End users have come today to really see our IT services, the IT services that you provide, like water and electricity. They expect your company's data and applications to literally be available 24/7. Customers and employees no longer even think about, not having availability to your information. So like I said, that's hardly news, but what is surprising is the gap that exists between your customers and employees' expectations and what is really reality today. And that's what I'm going to spend the next maybe 30 or 40 minutes talking about, what those gaps are and what the expectations could be and what some solutions in the industry look like. So, although we logically look to natural disasters as being the primary cause of IT outages and hang on, thank you. Sorry about that, folks. I was moving on to the next slide and didn't hit the button, but we're all caught up. So even though we think of like downtime and disasters to be a natural inclination, that it's real world natural type of disasters like hurricanes and tornadoes and fire and floods and so forth, while these are certainly increasing in severity, as you can see from this map that's provided by the National Oceanographic Institute, they only represent 5 to 10% of the causes of our real downtime in IT. So with that said, these unplanned events, these unplanned downtimes can occur literally at any time, and they're typically catastrophic failures that are caused by these natural disasters. So having a DR plan with business continuity, the ability to continue your business to a secondary location is definitely, at least for your mission critical applications, is without question a necessity today. So although we logically look at those natural disasters as being the cause for IT outages, application problems actually are the primary threat that IT faces today for uptimes. Things like hardware failure, process problems cause 80% of unplanned application downtime. Human error, over-provisioning of storage, deleting critical files, they all can play havoc with applications. Surprisingly, planned downtime can even be a bigger challenge from routine daily, weekly maintenance of databases and applications or systems that all lead to interruptions in services, things like system upgrades and performance tuning and so forth. So when you add to the mix the increased threats of malicious cyber attacks, the growth of complex end-tier applications, and what I mean by an end-tier application, I think a lot of you probably do know this, but those are those interdependent applications that are typically installed in virtualized environments that incorporate web services, DNS services, Active Directories, databases, and so forth. And the applications dependent on all of those applications, those sub-services working together. So when you take those into account, the problem becomes even more complex. And of course, reduced staffing, and it's easy to see why business continuity planning is becoming more and more critical today. And actually, if you look at where the major causes come from, 91% of data centers, and that's whether they're big or small, have experienced a downtime event in the last 24 months. That downtime event typically on average lasts for 2.2 days and can cost as much as $7,900 per minute on average. So you can see that the cost of this rises very, very significantly and very, very quickly, and it can last for a fair amount of time. So as an example, a local government agency in New Orleans, they offer a real-world example, and this happened in 2009. So it was after Katrina. It wasn't a natural disaster, a hurricane or a flood or something like that caused this particular example that I'm going to give. And of course, given their location, it's very easy to appreciate that they already had a DR plan in place, and they did. However, what happened was when two servers crashed simultaneously, that DR plan that they had in place came up short. The agency IT staff that they were using thought that they were backing up and replicating data to a third party, to a remote disaster recovery as a service, a DRaaS service facility. But no one tested the data for validity, and they only learned about the lack of data after the failure occurred. Backups weren't completing, and they had a 30-day retention policy that was automatically deleting any records that were valid. So here they had their two primary servers crash, and they had no valid data. So you can absolutely imagine the chaos that ensued from this, right? Hundreds of thousands of mortgage titles were lost. Home sales that were in process were halted because nobody knew who owned the property and who didn't own the property. Thousands of real estate agents weren't paid, and numerous small real estate agents actually were in a point of bankruptcy because they weren't getting the cash that they needed to survive. So the point here is that without proper testing of the data and the applications at both the primary site, the on-premise data center, and at the secondary site, in this case the cloud, there's no validation that the backup or that there's an assurance that you can recover IT services, even in an event that was not a natural disaster. It was a simultaneous failure of two servers. So it's critical to be able to validate and test that data. So in today's 24/7 data access environment, we really need to look at what downtime costs are, and what they include beyond just the loss of productivity and revenue. So what this chart is, and it's a bit of an eye chart, and I'm not going to go through it in any detail. It's in the white paper as well as reference to that previous story, so you can go look at the newspaper article that goes into a lot more detail if you're interested. So this is referenced in the white paper, and it's an example of what you really need to include in your downtime cost calculations. And they, of course, include direct productivity and revenue loss, as well as indirect costs, things like damage to your reputation, loss of customer opportunity, and damage to the company brand in the event that your primary server, say you have an e-commerce server, goes down and now customers can't access to buy your product any longer. Your reputation is going to be damaged in a major way. So when calculating loss, each of these factors really need to be included, and you can go through it again and look at it in detail. And an average estimate, according to lots of surveys that have been performed by numerous IT analysts, Forrester, Gartner, IDC, ESG, and others, indicate that this downtime costs businesses somewhere between $90,000 and $300,000 an hour. So the loss that's associated with financial institutions, telecommunications, manufacturing, and energy companies can even be significantly higher than the $90,000 to the $300,000. So no matter the cost and cause of downtime, it impacts more than just the day-to-day interactions. It can really impact the integrity of the databases as well as applications that use them. And some businesses can survive that data loss, but many, and I'd say most today actually, are really dependent on electronic data interchange, long-term archives to meet the stringent audit and regulatory requirements that we're under these days. Or they employ things like global workforces that need to collaborate, or e-commerce that I just talked about to make sales and deliver customer service. So today we're in this 24/7 environment, and companies can no longer afford to lose data, any data whatsoever. So FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Organization, reports that companies that lose at 10 days or more of data face bankruptcy. 93% of those companies face bankruptcy. That's a pretty compelling number, and it really points to the necessity to keep our operations continual and access to our employees and our customers continual as well. And even if it's not a bankruptcy, there's significant financial consequences to every hour of prolonged outage. And as you can see, 50% of companies don't open after a disaster, and 30% close within 2 years of an outage event. And Gartner goes on to say here that 40% of all companies that experience a major disaster go out of business if they can't gain access to that data in 24 hours. So I provide this real-world data to just really kind of point out the seriousness of keeping our data validated, keeping access to that data, and having the ability to recover in the event that you need to recover very, very quickly. So confidence today is continuing to erode. Given the longer recovery times and more critical systems and increased complexity that we have, it really is no surprise that confidence in our ability to recover from a disaster has fallen over the years. And if you look at this chart that's provided by Forrester, you can see that confidence is eroding very, very quickly. The ability to meet our recovery objectives is significantly lower than it was in 2010, where today, this is their latest data actually at the end of 2000, it was provided in the beginning of 2014, and I'm sure they're going to come up with another report here in the 2015 timeframe. But in 2013, you can see it eroded to 16% of people feeling that they were very prepared, down from 23%. And I surmise today, if you looked at that data is even significantly lower than it was in 2013. So no matter what the event is, and given the longer recovery times and the more critical systems that we have, and the increased complexity of our systems, again, that confidence in the ability to fail over is reducing significantly. And this is another view of that from Forrester, where the trend is increasing, where actual recovery times are becoming lower and lower over time. From data collected in 2007, 30% of the respondents said that they could recover from a disaster within 1 hour. In 2013, that was down to 2%. And again, I surmise today that that's even lower than it was in 2013. It's probably 1% or less today, with companies that feel that they can recover. Now, this is, again, mission-critical applications, your email, your e-commerce, your ERP systems, those systems that you absolutely need to have confidence that you can recover from in a short period of time. My apologies. My system here isn't working as well as it should. Every time I click the button, it doesn't want to click for me. So bear with me as I step through that. So with the compelling figures and increased demand and the inability to recover in a timely manner, what is really keeping companies today from implementing a disaster recovery solution? And even more surprisingly, today 80% of U.S. companies don't actually have a plan in place, and the 20% that do, 72% of that 20%, sorry for all the figures there, but 70% of the companies that have a plan in place actually have never tested it. And the primary reason for that is most feel that it's too expensive to do testing, because the majority of the testing today is manual and it's infrequent. They lack the resources, both in personnel and in equipment, or they feel that the testing is disruptive to production customers and employees. And what I'm going to show you and talk about today is that none of those deterrents should or nor need to be the case. So the critical feature of recovery is really regular and automated testing. That's what we're talking about. As you just saw, the sensitive subject to those IT executives was the fact that it's too expensive and it takes too long. So while few really debate the importance of testing, we just saw that many organizations actually can't take the time to regularly test their plans. And as Gartner notes here, they report that manual testing can cost upwards of $40,000 per test or more, again, depending on the complexity of your system. And that's due to the older methods of disaster recovery and testing, which are the manual, expensive, disruptive, and infrequent type of testing that we've literally had in place today, and there's a better way. So the challenge is critical to ensure that we have continued operation in today's 24/7 environment, and increased reliance on our electronic data exchange, web accesses, social media, and e-commerce. It's absolutely critical that we have some methodology of automated testing. So IT disasters, as we've talked about, are unpredictable, but the recovery shouldn't be. Losing any data will make access and continuity difficult and could lead to significant outages and disasters, as we've been speaking about. Today, a new approach to disaster recovery is really needed, one that will keep our data flowing and ensure continued operation. It's a paradigm change, if you will, that provides DR testing that's application-centric, fully automated, and iterative, meaning, iterative, you can do it continually on and on as often as you need to. And equally as important, at a lower cost that provides failover and real-time disaster recovery. So before we get started, let's take a look at just a couple of terms that I've been bannering around here so that we're all on the same page. As many of us know, the IT disaster recovery plans need clear goals, right? And they need objectives to succeed. And that means things like RTO, RPO for every application. And every application is going to be different because they need a different recovery time objective. And that's how quickly you need to restore that application to meet your customer, your compliance, your regulatory, your employee needs. So things like your ERP systems, your email, your e-commerce are going to have a faster recovery time objective. They need to be recovered in an hour or less, while things like your employee record systems and so forth, you may be able to recover those in 24 hours or even 48 hours. So you need to look at each of those applications and assign those objectives to it. And they must be really more than just recovering the data to the server itself. It's about recovering the application, and these applications are becoming more complex as I've spoken to. It's knowing that you can recover your applications with a minimal loss, and that's what the recovery point objective is, right? That's literally your last backup, your last snapshot. How much critical data can you afford to lose, again, on your e-commerce sites or your ERP systems? It may be every 15 minutes that you need to take a snapshot or a backup to ensure you have the latest and greatest data, whereas other systems, it could be 24 hours where you can afford to lose that amount of data if you had a critical catastrophic failure. So disaster recovery is really about returning your operations back to normal as quickly as required in the event of any outage, whether it's a planned outage, right? You're updating your systems, and that creates the majority of the disasters or the outages that, as you've seen, or it's an unplanned outage caused by some catastrophic event, power failure, fire, flood, and so forth. Today, applications as we've spoken to, have evolved to this N-tier complex service-oriented environment where customers expect them to be always on and accessible from literally anywhere, right? So there's another metric that's critical to be measured for each of these mission-critical applications, and that's recovery time actual and recovery point actual. And these are terms that you may not have heard in the industry spoken about as much. I'm sure most people have heard of RTO and RPO, and those are objectives. Those are things that we want to meet. RTA and RPA are real-time measurements of each application component that are included in these interdependencies, the databases, web front ends, DNS, and so forth, that measure the time from the actual boot up of each of those dependencies and the full application to full availability of that application to the business and to the users. So it's all the way from the time that you declared a disaster, to the time that you fully to each of the boot ups to your users actually being able to access that application. So real metric, and it really measures whether you're meeting your RTO, your recovery time objective that you set. So you need to have that measurement, and that plays into exactly what we're talking about, and that's real-time testing. So the combination of these metrics and real-time measurements provide that complete confidence that your mission-critical applications will recover in the time required to meet your customers, your operations, and your audit demands. So that's really what recovery assurance is that confidence that you can recover. And it incorporates all four elements of both setting the objective in RTO and RPO and measuring the achievement of that objective in RTA and RPPA. So recovery assurance equals reliable DR. What does that ultimately mean? We've covered the importance of automation. We've talked about application disaster recovery testing within today's technology landscape. But the IT marketplace really offers very few recovery assurance tools that can integrate with your backup solutions and your cloud solutions, which are becoming more and more dominant in today's secondary recovery environments. And so what Unitrends offers is a recovery assurance solution called ReliableDR. And ReliableDR provides DR testing that's application-centric, fully automated, and iterative. Remember, I talked about the paradigm change just a couple slides ago and what's needed. And that's really the basis of what ReliableDR provides on top of your data protection solution, both at the primary data center and within the Unitrends cloud itself, assuring that you can continue operations in the event of a catastrophic failure in the cloud and recover a server or an application failure on premise without having to go to your secondary site and try to drag all that data back across the WAN or even putting it on tape and then recovering it and rebuilding it. You'll never meet your RTAs in that environment where you have to bring it up in a very, very quick manner. So ReliableDR features tight integration with Unitrends backup software, our recovery series appliances. That's a fully integrated hardware box with storage, CPU, memory, networking, everything that you need, and our data protection software all integrated into it. It's either the backup software or both. They're functionally the same. It's just how the delivery mechanism is. And it delivers the industry's first recovery assurance for physical Windows, VMware vSphere applications, or Microsoft Hyper-V applications. So literally, whatever your environment is, our ReliableDR is going to run in that environment and ensure that you're meeting your RTO, RPO objectives and provide the reporting that's needed to show your compliance officers. So IT administrators with ReliableDR can absolutely validate the recovery of these N-tier complex applications across mixed virtual and physical environments, provide the automation and orchestration meaning really the coordination of all of those dependencies and services across multiple platforms, across the different layers of the service delivery stack, right? The multiple dependencies that I spoke to, from the network layer all the way up through the application. And that's really, in today's environment, a critical need for those use non-virtualized, mission-critical physical Windows types or physical application servers that a lot of companies still have. They're major database servers or major ERP servers, as well as the N-tier applications that run in a VMware or Hyper-V environment. So within the cloud itself, what we're providing from a Unitrends solution is a hybrid cloud data protection and recovery solution. Now, I'm not going to talk about the data protection side today. We have a number of webinars that do talk about that. They're on demand at unitrends.com. We have multiple demos of the actual software that occur on a monthly basis, as well as schedules on unitrends.com. And I encourage you to go take a look at those and see how our data protection software works and how comprehensive the solution is to recovering your data as well as archiving that data. We don't have the time in today's webinar to really delve into that. I want to talk about recovery assurance and how we're providing that level of complexity and that level of ease of use to that complex problem. So we provide a hybrid cloud data protection and recovery solution that provides physical and virtual data protection. So we're protecting the data across your entire environment, no matter what it happens to be. So we're not just dedicated to a virtual environment or a physical. We do both with a single solution. And we provide that protection on-premise and recovery within the cloud itself, as you can see in this fairly simplistic diagram, but very effective, showing the entire solution. And we provide that recovery in the cloud, in the Unitrends cloud, both with a disaster recovery as a service, as well as for those more mission-critical applications, we layer ReliableDR on top of disaster recovery as a service. So what's the difference here real quickly? Disaster recovery as a service allows you to spin up Windows, Hyper-V, and VMware applications in the cloud itself, but it's more of a manual process. It has a service level of agreement of an hour or less, depending on the complexity of your applications. And testing is done periodically as required. ReliableDR provides the automated testing, provides the automated reporting, ensures that you can meet faster recovery time objectives and measure those real-time actuals of those mission-critical applications. So it's a layer that sits on top, and you can choose which business applications or mission-critical applications you want to operate in both. But it's all controlled from a single environment. So ReliableDR is a recovery assurance that, as I said, operates in both environments. And it combines our instant recovery for Windows and VMware and Hyper-V and provides applications to be automatically tested at the application layer, including all of those interdependencies. And also provides real-time reporting and automated failover in the event of an outage. So using the New Orleans example again, those two servers that failed, using ReliableDR, you could have automatic failover for those services on-premise. Don't need to fail over to the cloud because there wasn't a catastrophic complete destruction of the primary site. It's just those servers. So the backup would have been tested. There would be a certified recovery point so that you know it's good data, that it's valid data, that all the boot processes and interdependencies work. You would just fail over to that certified replica and be up and operational very, very quickly using instant recovery within your on-premise. If Katrina came along and there was a major flood and whole primary data centers failed over. Now you fail over to the cloud. And again, you're operational within the cloud, and that data has been validated, it's been certified, you know it's going to be there, so your customers and your employees can continue to be operational. So why ReliableDR? Historically, as we've been talking about, DR has been one of the biggest challenges for IT organizations. There's massive amounts of time, resources, and cost that are spent ensuring that the primary and dedicated remote site, because in the past it wasn't the cloud, right? We had to have a dedicated secondary site that remained exactly like our primary site in terms of software revisions and patches and hardware models and everything. It had to be a one-for-one match. So even in the best case in the past, scenarios, DR scenarios fell short. Restores failed due to backup failures, system configuration issues, human error, what have you, right? The whole process was complex and costly. Fortunately today, the cloud is emerging. It's really becoming a primary target for disaster recovery. And tools like ReliableDR have automated the process. So with cloud-based recovery, virtualization, improvements in things like compression and deduplication and WAN acceleration greatly influence the DR best practices and allowing really a new standard of application recovery within the cloud itself. Our on-premise, in the event that you have a local failure that we've talked about throughout the presentation. So with ReliableDR, for the first time, companies can look at their data, get real-time data, and this is an example of the dashboards that are provided to the IT professionals, so they can look at this, see that the data was tested, see their, in this case, their virtual machine recovery point objectives are being met, the recovery time objectives are within compliance. If they're not in compliance, they'll get a red or a yellow. They can drill, just hit on that and drill right into it and get reporting as to where in their service stack they're having a failure, right? Maybe their RPOs, their recovery point objectives aren't fast enough. They need to back up data quicker because our data is growing at just this immense rate, as we all know. There's more and more complex applications that are being added every day. So we need to look at this data on a regular basis to ensure that it hasn't changed, that it's not affecting our ability to recover. And we can take a look at the jobs and see again whether the jobs are being met. And these jobs can be scheduled, so testing can be scheduled and failover can be automatic. And lastly, we can include the boot order. We can set up exactly what the interdependencies are. So all of this is incorporated into ReliableDR to allow the ability to automate the testing process, to provide real-time reporting to auditors and compliance officers, to show them that you're within your service level agreements that you've signed up to, and it allows ease of use in being able to set up this testing. As a matter of fact, the majority of the primary application testing like email and SQL and SharePoint and those types of applications are out of box. So the testing routines are already built in. If you have a custom application, the testing routines are very, very easy to configure and coordinate using the wizards that are built into this system. So it provides guaranteed recovery assurance. And recovery isn't successful until that failed critical application is operational again and users are up and running as we've spoken about. And in many cases, it isn't just one virtual machine, but multiple instances and virtual machines that work together within a network to deliver business services. So they all need to be tested together. And with ReliableDR, we can intermix and match both those physical applications. As you may be able to see here, you can see that there's a Windows recovery in this particular application, as well as VMware applications, instances mixed together. So you can set up a job to test those interdependencies if you have them between physical and virtual. And it's not, so it's not just about recovering that virtual machine, as I said. It's about recovering the entire IT service within the time frame that's needed. And then measuring that, like I said, from the boot process all the way to visibility to your users to that particular application. So what ReliableDR performs is the compliance tests that are required, creates a certified snapshot that can be used for recovery. So it tests the process of recovery. It tests all of your backup data, the RPOs, the recovery point objectives, against those dependencies, make sure that they all have the latest and greatest piece of information, and then it provides the reporting so that you can provide that to your audit and your compliance officers across VMware Hyper-V and physical Windows. And these tests, as I've spoken to, can be scheduled to run on demand, so you can set up schedules to run automatically on whatever your process happens to be that you need that data, and failovers are run on demand as well. So if there's a failover, it'll fail over to on-premise to a virtual system in using our instant recovery, or within the cloud using instant recovery as well. So testing, as I've been speaking to, is about risk mitigation. It's about reducing that risk to your company and ensuring that you can continue your operations. But understanding risk is never complete without being able to see and track the recovery results over time, not only for your IT managers and your CIOs and your senior executives, but for those auditors and compliance officers where you may have regulatory requirements, HIPAA or SOX type of requirements. Now you can generate real-time reporting to give to those officers. You don't have to complete it from scratch as many have had to do in the past. Print those reports, provide it to the compliance officers, and actually provide proof that you have a certified point of recovery and that this has been tested. So integrated into ReliableDR are these easy to comprehend and visual dashboards. So you can take a real quick look as you're operating through your day, you can look at the data and see that it's being tested, or see that it's out of compliance, that you have data because of the growth of data or number of users or how often that data is changing. It may be falling out of compliance, so you need to update your RTOs and your RPOs, or determine how you're going to improve the compliance report, the compliance ability of that particular application, and you can drill into any one of these points on this particular chart and get far more detail as to where and why that's falling out of compliance. So that's recovery assurance. That's the guarantee, the assurance that you can recover your data both locally, your application data, application-centric data, because we've talked about backup data, but backup data alone is not enough. You need to be able to ensure that that data that we've backed up runs with the application, integrates with the application, incorporates with all the complexity of these end-tier service environments, spins up in the right order, and meets the recovery time objectives that you set for that application, or your regulatory officers or compliance officers have set for that particular application. So ReliableDR is that guarantee, and it's available on an application by application basis, a VM by VM basis, runs on top of disaster recovery as a service in the cloud, or runs on within your on-premise, so that you can certify those applications in both environments and recover and not be have the result of the New Orleans agency that thought that they were backing up the data but never knew that it was any good, and found out, unfortunately, when it was too late. So pretty quickly here, as we roll into the end, so that we have some time for some Q&A, let me just introduce you to Unitrends. For those that may not be familiar with us, I'm just going to go through a couple quick charts here, not any depth, but really introduce you to the company and who we are. We've been in business since 1989, so we've been around for quite some time. We're one of the long-term data protection and recovery companies in the industry, and that's good for a number of reasons. One, we have a lot of history. We understand the industry in depth. We understand data protection and recovery, and we're certainly one of the premier leaders in cloud-provided disaster recovery and recovery assurance. So we provide this integrated end-to-end data protection solution from on-premise all the way out to the cloud with a single platform, single solution, so that you don't have to have these silos of data protection solutions, one for your physical environment, one for your virtual environment, one for your disaster recovery site, another for the cloud. It's all integrated into one solution. We're worldwide, headquartered in Boston. We have 14,000 and growing customers, and we sell through our partners. We're a partner-oriented company, and we have over 8,000 partners worldwide. So a company that's been in business for quite some time and is growing at a great rate and continues to lead in the industry. So from a cloud perspective, as I said, we provide both on-premise data protection solutions, either software that runs as a virtual appliance on Hyper-V or VMware, or as a fully integrated hardware appliance that's plug and play right onto your local area network that incorporates all the software. It's pre-tuned, pre-built. You just plug it in, and within minutes you're up and operational and backing up and protecting your environment. It's integrated with a cloud. We support both public cloud and our own private cloud. So you can back up and archive data to Google, to Rackspace, to AWS, Amazon, and provide that service, at least from a storage perspective. Our cloud provides a higher level. It provides the ability to retain data for an infinite amount of years, and it also provides disaster recovery as a service, and for those mission-critical applications, recovery as a service. That's the added layer that sits on top of disaster recovery as a service. Protect over 10 petabytes of data in those clouds. Forever Cloud here is that retention cloud that allows you to retain data for as long as you need it for regulatory and compliance reasons. So you can have 7 dailies, 4 weeklies, 12 monthlies, and an infinite amount of years set up in your typical type of grandfather, father, son type of environment. And as the key that we're talking about here is application level automation, coordination, orchestration, and guarantee recovery assurance of those critical applications. So before we go into Q&A, just want to introduce you to a couple of things that we have going on right now. You can download a free version of our software for VMware that will run in your environment. It will protect up to a terabyte of data, or 1.5 terabytes in a Google environment. And it's unlimited. It's unlimited virtual machines. It's unlimited resources. It's unlimited time. You can use that software, continue to use that software, and do the majority of the functions that we're talking about. It does not include ReliableDR. That's not included in our free package, but you can certainly get a real sense for how things work by downloading that piece of software. And I encourage you, for additional questions, call us. You know, we'll even give you a gift certificate to call us and interact with us, have a conversation, and learn more about how to recover more than just your data, right? We're a data protection company, but learn how to really implement and address the big elephant in the room, and that big elephant is, how do we recover in the event of a disaster, whether it's planned or unplanned. So I encourage you to make the call and get the gift certificate, and with that, I'll turn it back over and see what kind of Q&A that we have for today.
All right, folks, we have quite a few questions already in our queue. If you are looking for a way to ask us a question, please look for the icon with the question mark in the upper right-hand corner of your screen if you have that view, or from the drop-down menu near the middle top of your screen if you have that view. Please do make sure to address all questions to all panelists, just so that we can make sure to get to all of your questions here today. We're going to jump into our first question that was asked a little earlier in the session, from Tommy, and Tommy says, can you go into detail about the security of Unitrends Cloud? I have a customer whose fan went down yesterday, but he is a law firm and he avoids the cloud at all costs.
Yeah. I mean, security, it's a great question. I mean, security is a major concern when you start sending your data across an open network, right? And it's sitting out on a cloud whose storage resources are shareable by multiple companies. So a very valid question. When you look at security, there's a couple things that are really imperative to ask your vendor and how they do it, right? How are they sending and transmitting their data across the WAN itself, right? The wide area network. And most companies don't have dedicated fiber to their cloud. If you do, you're protected, right? But most of us are going over some type of open network. So you want to encrypt the data in flight, right? Unitrends provides 256 AES military-grade encryption of all data that goes across that wide area network. So you're protected in flight. We encrypt the data on site at rest with that same military-grade encryption. So the data is encrypted at rest so other people can't see it. Additionally, we provide multi-tenant support on our cloud. And what does that mean? That means that think of an electronic fence, if you will. We fence your data, your applications from everybody else that's in that cloud environment. So we can have multiple tenants within our cloud, and we provide that security, that extra layer of security. So the law firm example is a great one. You had your storage area network go down. That's your major data set within your law firm. You have to continue to be able to access your clients. You could fail over to the cloud, have assurance that it's secure data, and continue your operations within that cloud. Hope that helps.
All right, our next question is coming in from Candace, and Candace says, can you only use Forever Cloud with a Unitrends device?
Yes, today we can only use Forever Cloud on the Unitrends cloud in conjunction with Unitrends backup software or Unitrends recovery series appliances. It's all integrated together. The data that's being sent from on-premise, right, the data protection is done on-premise. So the backups are done there, and the data is prepared to be sent across the WAN. We use global level deduplication. Another thing that you should ask your vendors, by the way, is how do they deduplicate their data? It's really critical in sending, especially if you have a lot of change data or you have a lot of data sets, and how you send that data across that wide area network. It will determine how big your pipe has to be, right? So we prepare all that data within the Unitrends data protection environment that's on-premise. Global deduplicating across all the jobs and the environments that happen to be in that location, as well as doing a first pass look at the cloud to see whether that data is resident on the cloud before it's transmitted. So we're really only sending the delta changes across the WAN. And then Forever Cloud itself, that archive schedule, what you retain, what you don't retain, how long you retain it, all those things are managed by your user interface that happens to be on-premise as well. So it's a tightly integrated solution today between the Unitrends cloud for Forever Cloud and on-premise.
All right, our next question is coming in from Bernie. And Bernie says, after a disaster at my primary site and a failover to a cloud DR site, how do I get my data back once my primary site is repaired?
Yeah, one of the best questions I've heard today. Thank you for that, by the way, Bernie. It's a question that a lot of us don't ask until we get to that point where we have to get our data back, right? You don't, if you have a catastrophic failure at your primary site, that means that you have to build all the data back at your primary site, right? It's not that you're just, bringing a couple files back, or you're bringing a data set back, or you're bringing a snapshot, a virtualized machine snapshot back. You're bringing the entire thing back to your data center. So try that. I mean, that could easily, in today's environment, be terabytes of data. Trying to send that back across the WAN is a disaster in itself, right? It literally take you weeks, if not months, trying to get that data back. So ask your cloud vendor, whoever it happens to be, whoever you're talking to, how do I get my data back when I need, after I've rebuilt my primary site? What Unitrends does, if you have a Unitrends Recovery Series appliance, we rebuild that appliance with all of your data, not only the data that was saved there originally, but all the change data as well. Remember, your users are now on the cloud. They're continuing operation on the cloud. Data is being changed. New data is being created. You want to make sure that you not only bring back the data that was originally saved there, right, your original backup or archives, but all the change data as well. So we package all of that together on the appliance, ship the appliance back overnight. Now your entire primary system is up and operational. If you have a software environment, Unitrends backup software running on a virtual machine or running on Linux, we package that on a network, on a NAS, a storage device. Send the storage device back to you. Same thing. Plug that onto your network. Boom, you're up and operational. So it's immediate. It's overnight, and it's very quick. And you don't have to worry about trying to shovel all that terabytes of data across a very, very small WAN pipe. Great question.
All right, next question is coming from Gil, and Gil says, we are a law firm and security has always been an issue with cloud services. You stated that the data is encrypted on-premise before it's sent to the cloud. Does this mean that if the data is subpoenaed from you, it is not readable by anyone but us?
Well, yeah, unless you give them your key, that's exactly right. The data is in an encrypted format, and until you provide the key for that particular data set, it's encrypted, right? We can't see it or anybody else. So only those authorized by you as a company will have access to that data.
And on that same note, very important that you keep those encryption keys in a secure off-site location, because if you do happen to lose them, we have no way of unencrypting your data for you. So it's definitely really important. It is very, very secure.
Great point, Katie. I mean, absolutely. You don't want to keep your key in your primary site if you have a catastrophic flood, fire, or whatever, and your keys disappear, then we're all in trouble, right?
Then this looks like it might be the last question that we have time for. This one is coming in from Joshua, and Joshua says, when will UEB offer true multi-tenancy support? We are a partner and are looking into offering this to our customers via our own private cloud.
Well, we're putting together an entire cloud MSP type of program, and we can talk about this a little bit more offline. And as a matter of fact, let me just go to the next slide here, and it has my email address on it. You're welcome to send me an email. We can get into a lot more detail. The multi-tenancy is on our cloud itself, and then we're going to be able to have the package that you as a partner can set up your own private cloud, provide that same level of multi-tenancy.
And Joshua, I'll make sure that the person who's responsible for your account follows up with you. Well, unfortunately, we have run